I hate my own videos. I've been making video content for a little over a year now, starting my TikTok journey around the start of quarantine and eventually moving on to YouTube. If there's one thing I've learned about making content for the anime community, it's that if you make a mistake, people will figure it out. And your comments will be filled with just that one mistake. Or to be more accurate, your mind will be filled with just that one mistake. And very quickly, you can learn to become ashamed of your hard work. These feelings of shame are confronted in the new anime movie Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, which premiered in Netflix in late July. Animated by Sublimation and Signal MD, Words is both written and directed by Kohei Ishiguro. Ishiguro is best known for driving you and me to tears for his wonderful direction of Naoshi Arakawa's Your Lie in April. But don't worry, Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop is far more uplifting and won't be reducing you to hysterics yet. Nevertheless, his direction in this film is phenomenal and is only matched by the unforgettable visual style led by animation director Yukiku Watabe. Characters and set pieces are drawn freely, without consistent rigid dimensions, allowing for a full range of expression not possible with a more traditional approach. More immediately noticeable is the muted yet bright color palette of Words, clearly meant to invoke the feeling of a summer day. The pastel chromas blend almost seamlessly into the background, giving off the perception that each and every character is merely a cloud in a July sky. Speaking of characters, Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop tells the story of two in particular. It's a boy meets girl tale primarily taking place in a mundane suburban shopping mall in an unnamed Japanese city. Smile is a popular idol and internet streamer who, rather than screaming at horror games or cheating at Minecraft speedruns, opts to take her audience on a journey to seek out cute things. Despite her willingness to put herself out for an audience of thousands, she hides a secret behind a mask, a set of buck teeth sported since childhood. On the flip side, we have Cherry, the soft-spoken introvert who works at an elder daycare facility in the place of his sick mother. To compensate for his stunted ability to communicate, he expresses his thoughts and feelings through haiku, jotting down his new ideas in a notebook while blocking out the world with a pair of headphones. As any good teen rom-com would dictate, the two have a chance encounter, beginning their burgeoning connection. Essentially, in order for Cherry and Smile to build a relationship to each other, they have to overcome the shame that holds them both back. The question first is, what exactly is shame and why do we feel it in the first place? Liebing Shen of the Shanghai Institute of Neuroscience and one of the leading researchers in the history and evolution of shame defines it as such. Shame is an unpleasant, self-conscious emotion typically associated with a negative evaluation of the self, withdrawal motivations, and a feeling of distress, exposure, mistrust, powerlessness, and worthlessness. However, the important distinction made here is the difference between shame and guilt. Shame drives people to hide or deny their wrongdoings, while guilt drives them to amend their mistakes. But neither Cherry nor Smile have actually done anything wrong, so how exactly can they be ashamed of themselves? Psychologist Annette Kammerer answers this question by further differentiating shame and guilt. She says the quote, "The difference is that when we feel shame, we view ourselves in a negative light. I did something terrible. Whereas when we feel guilt, we view a particular action negatively. I did something terrible." It's here we can begin to understand how these two characters can begin to develop a shameful outlook. Smile doesn't really believe that having buck teeth is inherently bad, but rather feels as if she's a bad person for not being the perfect idol that her fans expect her to be. Similarly, Cherry clearly doesn't believe haiku itself is wrong, which would trigger guilt, but instead believes that sharing his feelings openly would annoy or inconvenience others, hence becoming shame. Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop offers a set of symbols that help exemplify the relationship that Smile and Cherry have to their shame. For Cherry, he wears a pair of headphones that cuts him off from the world around him. In a similar manner to that of Shoya from A Silent Voice, the headphones free Cherry from the burden of finding his own voice. Like all people, his personal way of expressing who he is and demonstrating his agency is in his haikus. However, shame overtakes him, leading him to believe that his voice is not compatible with the model of the world he's created for himself. We see this when he joins the mall's elderly haiku club and is asked to speak out loud the poem that he's created. Cherry responds by claiming that haiku is a written art form. Putting on the headphones, he says, "It doesn't have to be spoken to get the meaning across." We can see, however, this is nothing more than a convenient excuse, as he's embarrassed to even share the written form of his haiku with his club's director. In putting on the headphones, he hopes that his voice can become only one way, a sound put into the void without a response, ashamed of what might come back. Meanwhile, the shame of Smile is her mask, a symbol of her imperfection. Cherry, being an internet streamer and idol, certainly modernizes the struggle she feels with the pressure of being being a modern celebrity. Idol culture in Japan is brutal, to say the least. Certainly in the West, we have absurd standards for online personalities, especially women. But for anyone that's seen Perfect Blue, you know exactly how far things can go in Japan. The word parasocial gets thrown around a lot in modern day discourse, and I already made a dream joke in this video, so I won't get too much into it. But the way that people often mistake their favorite personality for their friends often leads them to hold them to impossible levels of idealism, which in turn convinces the personalities to hold themselves to those ideals. Incidentally, the dichotomy between the object of Cherry and Smile's shame echoes how traditional gender roles demand shame for those who don't meet them. Cherry expressed a clear desire to express his emotions in a complex and nuanced way through this prose. William Liu, professor of counseling psychology at the University of Iowa, notes that cultures that favor traditional masculinity pressures men into limiting the emotions they may feel, instead elevating only those emotions that allow them to rise in status, such as anger or stoicism. Cherry's built his identity on the need to turn a whirlwind of feelings into haiku, and thus feels shameful that he cannot achieve that traditional male ideal. Smile, on the other hand, fears falling short of the expectation of women to achieve unobtainable beauty standards. In contrast to the male ideal of Cherry, who's shamed by society into presenting only those feelings and emotion that men are expected to have, or more accurately, refusing to show any emotion at all if it doesn't conform to those standards, Smile is shamed into society by presenting only those physical parts of herself that women are expected to have. So then the question becomes, how do we overcome shame? It seems as if this feeling is just all-powerful, causing us to hide parts of who we are for something as simple as malformed teeth. If something so small can do something so dangerous to us, a thing as simple as a mindset change isn't really going to solve anything. Smile's journey to conquering her shame begins with a record. Within Cherry's elder care facility is Mr. Fujiyama, a quiet man who owns a local record store. Throughout the film, one B story is the man's search for a lost vinyl of his deceased wife, who happened to formerly be a local popular vocalist. Finally, after days of search, Smile is finally able to find the record underneath a drawer. Revealing the face of the late Miss Fujiyama, we see a full set of buck teeth. She raises the record to her face, covering her mask with someone more willing to be proud of who she was. This event dovetails itself into the primary message of Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, how these characters confront their shame. Jessica Von Vliet, professor of psychology at the University of Alberta, believes that the solution to shame is building a connection to other people. To her, shame is the inability to find our reality within other people, and therefore turning aspects of ourselves that we're ashamed of into guilt for not being the correct version of ourselves. In her paper, Shame and Resilience in Adulthood, she says, people start to realize that it's not just them. Other people do things that are as bad or even worse sometimes, so they're not really the worst person on the planet. They start to say to themselves, this is human. I am human. Others are human. To Smile, an idol is meant to be a role model for the people around them, and what she sees as a deformity is an offense to the smile she's supposed to bring to others. By uncovering the record of Mr. Fujiyama's wife, Smile is able to bring a connection to the past, seeing herself in another performer, radiantly smiling, unashamed. As Lit would note, Miss Fujiyama is human, and therefore Smile is human as well. So then, how does Cherry learn to overcome his shame then? Nearing the end of the film, Cherry and Smile have themselves a falling out, originating from Cherry hiding the fact his family is moving out of the city at the end of the week. Smile believes that hiding this fact is a sign of the meaninglessness of their relationship, and Cherry, being unable to express himself, fails to apologize and retreats back to his headphones. This is where Smile realizes exactly how she is learning to cope with her own buck teeth, realizing that Cherry also needs that human connection to escape his shame and express his feelings. As he and his family drives away from the city and passes the mall, she turns the tables and publicly displays his haikus and a message for him to turn around and return to the festival that the mall is holding. Cherry once again removes his headphones, realizing that he already saw his reality within Smile, someone he knew already was ready to accept the way he expressed himself. He climbs onto the festival balcony and recites haiku after haiku directly to Smile, who returns the gesture by removing her mask. I think that we're often told that the way to overcome our shame and anxieties is to just learn to suck it up and put ourselves out there. But being able to identify with what makes us proud to be ourselves often requires a human connection, one that we simply can't internalize on our own. But being willing to make that connection and being willing to accept that connection as valid tends to be what is the real hiccup. When I make a mistake in a video here or there, it's easy for me to just put that negative response front and center. Hell, I got scared as soon as my Evangelion video started to blow up, even though it had like 5,000 thumbs up. The few mistakes that people pointed out only made me more and more ashamed of the video, even as it got more and more positive response. Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop reminds us that in order to overcome the shame of what we personally feel are our shortcomings, we need to be able to accept the empathy of others. Thanks for emphasizing with my videos, and as always, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.